social connectedness between families in their communities, and to increase knowledge and skills around cycling with your family. So today I have three very special guests. They are all experts when it comes to cycling with their families. We have multi-generations with us today, and I'm so excited to be passing over the mic to those folks. Today is also a live Q&A, so you are more than welcome to ask your own questions of our panelists in our comment section of this Facebook stream. So thank you again for tuning in. I will have our panelists, Jenny, Julian, and Kathleen, introduce themselves now. And yeah, put your questions in the comment box. Thank you so much. All right, Kathleen, will you start us off?
Sure. My name is Kathleen, and I've been cycling forever. I won't say how long because it's a long time. I found that the greatest thing about cycling as a kid and then as a young adult was the freedom and independence. And I commuted to work by bike for basically my whole career. Now I'm a grandma, and I have 10 grandchildren, 5 of them in the Victoria area, and they're all on bikes. Even the 3-year-old, she's got her own little run bike and tricycle. So we get together as often as we can and go for little rides together. And I have the time to actually help the kids and take the time to take them for rides, because for all you younger parents, time sometimes is a problem. So that's my job these days, is getting my grandkids mobile.
Thanks for that. Julian, would you like to go next?
Yeah, but first I'd like to know if Kathleen's like available for rent. Can I borrow you so you can take my kids out for an afternoon?
Sure.
Having that kind of help sounds amazing.
Depends how old they are.
Well, I've got 3 kids. I've got a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and an 11-month-old. And we do everything with our bikes. So if you tuned in yesterday at this time, I was also on the group there talking about cargo bikes with kids. And that is how we get around. We do everything in our cargo bike. But my kids are growing up a bit more now. They've spent so much time in the big bike that they are eager to kind of get on their own bikes. So they've really been pushing for us to let them get on their own pair of 2 wheels and master those skills and explore new areas. So they really actually have taken charge of their own development in learning to ride. And we've been learning a lot as a family through that process. I don't know if I'm an expert
my
yet,
kids
but we're certainly learning a few things, and we're happy to share sort of the tips and tricks that we've picked up along the way.
Oh, Jenny, sorry, your sound is off.
Thank you for that. As you can see, I have my almost 3-year-old, so I try to mute when I can. But I echo very similar sentiments to Julian. We also have a cargo bike. We also have 3 kids. I have a almost 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, and an almost 7-year-old. So we are kind of maxing out our cargo bike abilities and weights, although I do carry all 3 to school every single day, and we take longer kind of adventures downtown and kind of throughout town when we want to go and explore. And yeah, that's us.
Thank you. Thanks all 3 of you again for joining us today. I will ask again for folks who are watching if they want to comment their own questions. I'm going to start off with a few of my own. But please, yeah, this is a live Q&A, so we're waiting for you to let us know what you'd like to know about cycling with kids.
Justine?
Yes.
Just one quick thing I want to say that kind of jumped out to me as each of the 3 of us spoke. There's a really natural progression there where you have little, really young ones that you put in the bike, and you just pour them around. And then there's this transition where you're doing a bit of both. And then over time, there's this really beautiful thing that happens where they learn a lot of independence. And that's one of the really beautiful things of cycling, is it provides kids a huge amount of independence. And there's this really cool gradient or natural process that happens, going from little itty bitty ones all the way up to full kids. that really have that sense of independence and freedom. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about cycling as family.
Thank you. Yeah, that was actually going to be my question, was like, what are the main reasons that you want to cycle with your family? Is it to give your kids that kind of sense of independence, or are there any other reasons why you would encourage your folks to try this out as well?
Can I jump in here?
Absolutely.
One of the things that I found with them is that not only does it give them independence, but it's actually a cheap form of transportation. So even once the kids get into college years and whatever, they will still continue to have independence. And that's really important. But getting back to what Julian said about the natural progression of your kids, our oldest grandson here in the Victoria area is now 12. And it's really nice because we can actually do some pretty serious rides with him. On Mother's Day, for example, we rode from the Kinsall Trestle down to the other set of grandparents in Duncan, and he loved it. You know, it's all on a trail, and it was just a great ride, and it was 20K, and there was no complaints. And yeah, so once they get to that stage, and I know in another couple of years he'll be long gone, we'll never see him again, but right now it's very nice.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jenny.
Sorry, I was going to say, for me, I personally like to ride for physical fitness, but also mental fitness. I feel like there is just a extremely great mental and emotional benefit to lots of exercise, which I think that doesn't really get highlighted too much. So for me, I like to just be outside and get fresh air, and I really, really see a mental switch when I am riding my bike. And I think that that's the same for kids as well. Like, kids really get to have or get the physical benefits from riding, but they also get the mental benefits from riding. And I think that in our little COVID world, especially now, kids are really resilient, but they still get overloaded with a lot of big topics. And I think that biking particularly is a really good release for everybody of all ages.
Yeah, I would agree with all that. And I would build on it and say it's healthy for everyone, mental and physical. And kids just have energy to burn, right? And they have no problem riding in circles over and over again, right? Like, they just have that kind of energy, and you just give it to them and they'll do it. And that's essentially what a bike park is, right? A bike park is just a big loop with some interesting ups and downs and stuff. And it's incredible just how long they will just keep going around and around and around. They find that super, super interesting, and they learn super quick that way.
It's true. When I need to get out for a workout and I can't be on a bike for an actual workout. Yesterday, I took my son and my daughter out, and my son biked while I ran. And we call it prairie dog when he goes around and around, but that's essentially what he was doing. And he could keep up because we bike regularly. And they just become so proficient, right? So every family dynamic is a little bit different, and you're all at different starting points, but kind of as you progressively build, they become better and better. And we're kind of at the point now where I can't run too much with my kids. At least while, they don't have that awareness, to check back or to come back again. But luckily my older ones do.
I live right on the Galloping Goose, and I see more and more families doing that as well, where mom or dad are going to get some exercise, which is really hard to squeeze in as a parent, while they run and their kid rides. It's such a great combination. My wife and my daughter have started to do that, and around that sort of 5-year-old age range, it's a great age. Within give or take a couple of years, to kind of squeeze in exercise that way, it's a great experience for the parent and the kid. Overall, it works on a lot of levels.
Yeah. And just like what Kathleen was saying, like going out for a ride with her 12-year-old and maybe in a few years, this 12-year-old will be off to university, but you really build connections as well. And so the fact that Kathleen would go bike riding with her 12-year-old grandson, I hope I can be in that position, right? Because you do these activities together and it really builds connections. And I find sometimes on our bike, we have the best conversations. I feel fortunate enough that both of my older brothers have been in the cycling scene. They have both been on the national team for different disciplines in cycling. And because my brothers were in it, my dad got into it. And I've built a lot of connection with my brothers and my dad because we cycle. And you can be side by side and have these really big topics and discuss them where you're not really face to face. So it really makes conversations, I feel like, a lot easier. And I'm sure that when Kathleen's grandson, hits a few, big topics himself, he's going to have that connection with her that, he can talk to her about that. And, he's going to really enjoy having that relationship. And so I feel like cycling really pulls together strong connections and strong relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. And even to take the independence and freedom one step further, I think it builds a really strong sense of empowerment for kids. As I mentioned, we took our kids around on our cargo bike like all the time, and they were asking to get on their own bikes, and then we let them. And the big ask was they wanted to be able to ride to school. So we did some test rides and stuff. And now we actually, it's almost daily that we go to school now where they're on their bikes. They've just kind of gotten to that point. And that gives them a really strong sense of empowerment, right? Mm-hmm. They had this goal. They really wanted to do it. We let them do it. And now they're mastering it. And I think that that learning cycle and that sense of accomplishment is really important for kids to build, self-confidence and their identity and all those really positive things that happen at that age.
Thank you for that. I'm really curious about when you would know when your kids are safe to ride by themselves. And kind of like, there's like this like debate right now, like, should I be getting my kid like a tricycle with like training wheels, or I know that like balance bikes are really popular right now. Like, do any of you folks have any experience between those two kind of options? And then like when you feel like your kids are actually ready to go off on their own, is there a moment when you're like, oh yes, they're ready?
I think it's going to be different for every family, and I think it's going to be different for every child, but you really lay a building block of, start small and then you kind of slowly progress. For some people, it might be, just watching them ride or be proficient as you're going to school. For other people, it might be, following directions at the bike park, or it could just be, riding around your block and watching them how they respond to road signs or your commentary on a bike. So I think it's just going to vary so much. And for us, our kids started biking when they were really small, started with a run bike practically as soon as they could walk. And they just had no choice to not like bikes. Joking, but luckily they do. And luckily they want to be on their bikes. But for us, it was just a really slow build up because they've had the history and the background of riding bikes just around our neighborhood.
Yeah, I would say like it happens very incrementally. Very incrementally. There's a lot of little skills that go into learning how to bike, right? Just basic balance and how consistent they are at it, staying focused on going straight, whether they're stopping with their feet on a strider bike or actually learning different brake systems, learning new bikes as they grow older. Like there's so many different like stages of it. And the approach that my family's taken is give them lots of space to explore in safe areas, just around your cul-de-sac, on the Galloping Goose, at a bike park, like lots and lots of time in those safe spaces. Give them lots of autonomy within those spaces, and then gradually like let them go onto sort of more and more challenging areas. But make sure you're not rushing it. You don't have to. And they just need quite a bit of time to really master all those skills. It's quite a bit. So I would say take it incrementally. For us, we did do the Strider bike, and I highly recommend it for people. In fact, the Strider bike now you can get one where it's a regular Strider bike, so no pedals, and then you can get like an upgrade kit where you can put on the pedals, which I like worked wonders for my kids. They learned to pedal in like an afternoon because they're already familiar with like the handling and feel of the bike. Like it's their bike. They're super comfortable with it. And then it's just a matter of like, oh, we've put the pedals on, try it out. And they're just mastering like one more skill there. And it's just a really nice segue versus if you take them from a Strider bike and put them on a whole new bike with pedals, like they're learning like 3 or 4 things at the same time because it feels totally different. And that just has worked wonders with our kids. So I highly recommend that setup. Balance bikes are just great because the key skill you need to learn is to balance, right? Training wheels get in the way of that a little bit. We did start with training wheels with our oldest, our daughter, and we found it was a block for her. Like it was getting in the way of her learning, and she learned much more quickly when we switched to the Strider.
That's great to know. Kathleen, do you have any ideas for this question?
Yeah, the oldest, the 12-year-old, he terrorized people in shopping malls on his Strider bike. They lived downtown Vancouver. They lived at Kitts Beach when he was that age, and he was all over the place. But anyway, he had no trouble at all getting going with the pedal bike and whatever. Like you said, it's a bit of a learning curve when you change bikes and stuff. But now the youngest granddaughter, who's 3, she has decided she doesn't like the Strider bike. She wants the pedal bike because all the bigger kids have the pedals. So we'll just work with that. You just kind of go with the flow and see what they want. To me, it doesn't matter if it takes them an extra month or 2 to really get the hang of it, as long as they get the hang of it,
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really about going their pace. Like you're just reading them, right? Like what they're comfortable with, and trying to embrace like when they're enthusiastic about something, like jumping on that enthusiasm and doing it in a safe way. Like the trip to school, like my kids just really wanted to be able to ride to school. So we did a bunch of like safe practice rides when like things were super quiet, and built up to it. But like they had sort of the motivation and energy, like there was no arm twisting, and that, if you can trick your kid into wanting to do what you want them to do, that's the golden ticket, right? The hardest thing in the world is trying to convince your kid to do something they don't want to do.
So
that relates to all facets of parenting too, by the way. It's not just
that's just a free piece of
golden
parenting
ticket.
we have a question in the comment section that I was hoping to maybe direct at Kathleen first. It's from Rika, and it seems like actually in the comments someone else has been answering questions, which is awesome, of course. I was hoping that maybe, Kathleen, you could weigh on this. We have a 6-year-old son who is fairly confident in riding with traffic. When we're riding as a family, it feels great and safe. I ride in front, towing our 4-year-old on a bike trailer, and our 6-year-old is in the middle. My husband rides at the back. However, I'm a little bit nervous when riding when it's just me and both kids. Do you have any tips on riding safely with 2 kids?
Yes and no. I tend to get quite aggressive with the traffic. Like I'll push them. I'll be the one that's out on the pavement. when I have them behind, like with the younger ones behind me. And I have also just stood in the middle of the road. If we have to cross the road at an intersection, I've walked out and held my bike sort of in the middle.
Wow.
And then sort of herded them across in front of me, and so that we're really visible, you know. And I haven't had any sort of frustrated drivers, but we don't go anywhere where there's a lot of traffic. So I'm not sure what and where they're trying to cycle. That's part of the thing. We're very cautious about picking our routes and stuff too.
Mm-hmm. Maybe kind of like riding in front of the kids versus behind the kids. Like, is there really like kind of a method that you would suggest?
If I'm only with the real young ones, I tend to sort of ride in front. If I've got one of the older kids with me, then I'll ride in back and let them go in front, because they're a lot more competent
Mm-hmm.
than, say, the 5-year-old or the 6-year-old.
Okay.
Yeah. With my kids, well, I think first off, like, only go in areas where they're actually ready for it. Right. But like, there's a lot of just like really quiet roads that are pretty flat. Traffic is quite quiet, where you can ride with kids pretty young. But I wouldn't push it too early, right? Like, they need to be really consistently being able to ride in a straight line, right? Like my son is 3. He can bike to his school, but like, he'll see a squirrel and go sideways, right? Like he sees like shiny objects and like gets totally distracted. So like I can't take him on the road yet, right? So like, he's only sticking to like really safe areas, like the Galloping Goose and like around our little dead end street here and so forth. So I wouldn't push it. It will come in time. That's kind of the first thing. When I ride with my kids, I ride in the rear, so I can see them both. And but the one up front needs to be a confident rider, right? So that's kind of the captain, right? She's got to know where they're going. She knows to sort of stay in the lane. She knows all those sort of basic rules. And then you're basically sandwiching like the less experienced ones in the middle. And being in the back, I can see them both. I can block traffic if I need to, like other cyclists and so forth. And create. I go kind of to the left of them, so people have to go more around me. That gives the kids even more clearance when they're passing. And it just like, people can see us from further back, that like, okay, there's a family riding here, and people clue in and tend to slow down and so forth. So I like riding from the rear where I can see them, as long as you have a confident rider up front, and you're on a route that they're familiar and comfortable with.
Yeah, I would echo those same sentiments, and I ride with my 2 boys on their own bikes a lot. So my number one takeaway, if you are not confident with either your riding ability or your kids' riding abilities in traffic, is to find those safe spaces. To route plan if you're going to be in traffic, so that you can find your, less busy roads, your little kind of trails, taking you off the beaten path, essentially. I feel like we've had the history where we have really built up to riding in traffic, so my kids are comfortable with that. And I've said this in previous little Q&As, but I'm really a running narrative on the bike, and I'm always saying what I am doing. Like, I see a stop sign ahead if my kids are on my bike, or if they're on their own bikes. Hey, what does that mean? What should I do here? Or, oh, here comes a road. I wonder if there's going to be any cars. Let's look. So I feel like I'm constantly doing this like chatter, because it might be second nature to many adults riding on a bike to like look on a side road and see if there's any cars that are going to kind of blow the stop sign, but it's not second nature to them. So if you kind of just keep this narrative going, that's inside of your head and you're vocalizing it, hopefully that can translate into their own narrative inside their head. And I do see that now because, you know, as my kids are in front of me on their own bikes, we come across a side road, you know, they'll shout out, "No cars," you know, and then they kind of keep going, because before I would make them stop. So it's kind of a progression. You know, I would make them stop at every roadway. Okay, are there any cars? No, there's not. Okay, now we gotta, you know, but now they're at the point they're on their own bikes, and they're proficient enough that they can kind of roll through, not the stop sign, mind you, just we have the straight roadway. It's the stop sign that the other cars have, but they can just kind of keep going, look over, no cars, okay, keep going. So it's definitely like a build-up progression, but your safe spaces, my one biggest gem in Victoria, is UVic. The grounds at UVic are by far, I'm blowing my cover here, but they are dead, and especially in the summer when it's like the nicest biking weather. But take your kids to UVic. You can drive. There's lots of free parking on the exterior UVic. If you have a parking pass or you're a student or staff there, you can just park inside. You have to double check to see if Sundays are free, but there's lots of options there. And it's virtually vehicle free. There's the Alumni Chip Trail, which is 4 kilometers, and that's a multi-use and shared pathway for the majority of it. There's one section that's not open to bikes. But other than that, it's really wonderful, beautiful grounds. You can make a day of it if you go. And then that's a really good way to like see how your kids are progressing, and see if they're able to move into traffic.
Anyway, Justine, I'm sorry, I have to go. I have another appointment, but it was great talking to everybody.
Yeah, Kathleen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks, Kathleen.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, so for the folks who are still watching us, we are just down to Jenny and Julian. Not just, of course, but we are down one person. Thank you, Jenny, for revealing your secret spot. I think there is another question that I was hoping you folks could answer in the comment section, and it was one that I had as well. Jenny, you were mentioning about maybe bringing your bikes with you when you're going to UVic. Do you have any tips for folks for when, or any recommendations on how to carry kids' bikes when they need to quit or need a break, when we get like tired kids? Bronwyn was asking, thinking to have a trailer which I could load them, maybe put the bikes in. Yeah, do you have any ideas if they've just had enough and they don't want to ride their bikes anymore? What do you do now?
I can.
Yeah, go ahead. No, you go.
Yeah, no, it's a great question because it totally happens, right? Like little legs get tired, right? And they actually like, they get tired fairly quick, especially with Strider bikes. Strider bikes are like, they're more work, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to be prepared for that. I've got a big cargo bike with a box in the front, so it's pretty easy for me. But I plan for that. I plan to have to put all the bikes in there, and then I'll still have for the kids to sit if they get tired. Okay. So I've got a big enough bike for that. I think a trailer would work as well in most instances. When the kids are a bit older and the bikes are bigger, this is probably less of an issue, and it'd be more about, I think, taking a break if they need it versus trying to load like a large bike on. I see a lot of people with long tails as well, just kind of strap the bikes to the back rails on the long tail, which means you might need bungee cords or something like that. So you just need to be prepared to be able to put the bikes somewhere on your bike so they can take a break, because that's a very, very real and common to expect?
Yeah, for us, because our kids, we don't have the ability to carry 3 separate bikes. We do put Cora's run bike and 12-inch pedal bike. We strap it onto the back of our long tail, like what Julian said. You do have to think a little bit or have some forethought in where you're going, because sometimes there's different gates that you have to get through, and depending on how you strap that in, you can't really quite fit. So you just have to think about where you're going, where you're planning to go. And my 5-year-old and almost 7-year-old, they're both on 24-inch bikes. They're tall boys. So we don't have the ability to carry those bikes. But we kind of just slowly build up into longer and longer rides. And I can't emphasize enough about bringing snacks and water and just allowing yourself enough time. Like, don't try to cram in a 30-minute bike ride in 30 minutes. If you have to go somewhere, or if you have an appointment or whichever, if you've got 30 minutes, make it a 10-minute bike ride, or make it a 15-minute bike ride. Because then if they end up getting tired out or they need a break, you can stop and you've got that time allowance. So I would just extend in your head the amount of time that it's going to take, so that you're not, stressed about time, and slowly build up to those longer rides, so that you kind of know what your child can do, or how far they can go, either in kilometers or time. But generally speaking, once kids have snacks, like, I feel like they just are Energizer bunnies that they can just go. So you can just stop on the trail, stop on the side of a road, just sit there. That's kind of always our activities. We live just a few kilometers away from UVic, so we bike up to UVic, almost all on dedicated trails or side roads, and then we go and check out the university club that's there. We check out the fountain in the summer, and then we go into Finnerty Gardens. So we kind of make it a point to have a stopping point in our ride, so that they don't kind of get to that point either where they're like, I'm kind of gonna have a meltdown now, and I can't go any further. So you can kind of plan your route to a destination, and then it kind of gives them a natural opportunity for rest as well.
I would say, the only thing I'd add is, there seems to be just a really fortunate coincidence that when it's more of an issue, and they're riding like a 12-inch bike, with 12-inch wheels or 14-inch wheels, those fit onto a bigger bike, comfortably, if you're prepared for it. And then when they're more able riders and they're riding those 20-inch, 24-inch bikes, they're just much more capable at that point. So it's less of an issue, and it's more about stopping for snacks because they just need to refuel, right? But there's that happy coincidence. If you really have to carry a bike, they're usually small enough at that age that you can throw it on.
Good to know. I have another question from Lynn. Okay, this one is actually directed for Julian. This not riding in a straight line is so hard. Julian, you said it's fine on the Galloping Goose, but is it really okay when given other bike traffic? My problem is that I haven't ridden these trails enough yet to know when or what is good. I do ride on the left with my youngest on the slower neighborhood roads, which helps corral him to the right.
It's all gradients. I would say, I only recently let my 3-year-old go on the Galloping Goose, and he does do that. He'll start to do a 90, but I can be like, I right? Or I can be like, focus. Actually, that's what I'm saying. Focus. And he knows. He goes okay, I get in my lane. I look straight ahead. I sort of trained him on that. But that took time. I think riding slightly to the left is important in that case because it's just, he's at a stage where it's like it's those momentary distractions, and I just need to remind him. So I need to be able to see him for one, and I need to be able to provide a bigger buffer of passing bikes, right? So people got to go around me, which means they're going extra wide around him. I haven't had any like really close calls doing that, but I also stick to very familiar routes. Like I'm not taking him on new adventures, like in areas he hasn't been before, when there's busy traffic. Like we do it only when we only explore new areas when it's really quiet, right? And I know he's in a mood, in a state where he can kind of focus. So again, it's very incremental. It's very incremental. So like if your little one, if you find like they are way too easily distracted, I'd say start more on the dead end street and just like lots of time there. And that's I guess like that's another really big piece of this. Like I think they need a lot of time in those super safe environments just to get super good with the basics, right? With balance, with braking, and with those being able to do like circles and turns and stuff. And like I said before, like they have no problem doing the same circle over and over again. They love that. Like that's just very natural for kids. So find a space where like you can set up a lawn chair and a book, or like invite a friend to have like an outdoor coffee or something where they can just roam, and they just need to clock hours doing that. And I'm fortunate where I've got a space out front where it's pretty decent to let them just go roam like that. And make it entertaining for yourself as well. Like you don't have to be on your bike. You should actually find some time where you're not on your bike, where you're able to do like parenting things like garden or whatever, and they're in a safe environment where they can just learn, because they just need a certain number of hours just on the balance piece alone.
Yeah, I feel like I can't stress enough the safe environment piece. So while I think it's so great that Lochside Trail and the Goose is so busy, sometimes that's not the spot for families to be riding. And it doesn't mean that you can't go there, because if that's your place, then try to utilize it, or try to find maybe different sections of that piece where you can give them certain boundaries. Go up to this pole or go up to this marker and then come back and turn around and, loop back again. Kids also really love loops. They love things that kind of form together. So if you go to any like provincial campground, you'll know that like kids love riding those same loops over and over and over again. And those are also really safe places for kids to ride. So I would say, one, be familiar with your surroundings. So if you're not super familiar with that, go to somewhere you are, and just set some limits on where your kid rides or your kids ride, and then just let them clock those hours, just like what Julian said.
Well, one way to build skill fast is those bike parks that have those loops. There's something really there's a really like strong like feedback loop and learning loop for kids, where each time they go around it, they're trying to master a different part of it, and they like that challenge. It's pretty astonishing how quickly they learn when you let them kind of just practice in that environment. Even more so than I think just doing loops around the house, like being able to, because the bike parks, they have turns, they've got different slopes, there's all these sorts of these little challenges, and they really, really enjoy that. Like, my kids have had no issue doing like 45 minutes straight the same circle, but they come out of it like better. Like they come out of it becoming more proficient than when they started.
So it sounds like both of you have actually taught your kids how to ride their bikes. Are there any skills that are kind of like a must learn? Like obviously like balance and like pedaling, but like even I guess when your kids maybe get a bit older, are you going to be teaching them more of like hand signals, or maybe taking your hands off your handlebars?
Yeah, good question. I'm curious to see how you do it, Jenny. I do some like light practice or narration when I'm with my kids, and I get them to like help me too. Like, okay, put out your arm. We're gonna be turning right, and they enjoy making that kind of a game, and that's a good way to kind of build into it. I would. But that's actually more when they're in the bike with me. When they're on their bikes, I want them to focus on the core essential skills before they start using their brain for anything else. It's just starting with the basics, and that's how I've kind of approached it. So they're gradually learning those more advanced things, like signaling, by me speaking to them when they're in my bike. But like my kids at 5 and 3 on their bikes, just aren't quite there yet, for the routes that we take and the approach that we've taken.
Yeah, we're very similar. Like, I really highlight just concentration on the road, knowing what's coming at them over anything else. They know that, depending on the circumstance, I will signal or not. I used to lead a women's ride locally through Oak Bay Bikes, and it was really designed for women to feel more comfortable in a group and to learn those kind of hand signals. So I feel like I kind of have a solid base. But when you're dealing with kids, I also used to coach a kids learn to mountain bike clinic. And the biggest thing that we ever taught them was look where you want to go. So in terms of skill, it's more about kids' proficiency on a bike versus them signaling to traffic where they're going to go. So I'm of the opinion that unless they're proficient enough and have that kind of confidence on a bike to delay the hand signals, because that's for other people versus kids riding themselves. And when you're on your bike with your kid, the number one thing you want to do is just have them be safe. And I do know that signals are safe for traffic, and you will get there eventually. So you're not excluding that. It's again just a slow progression. So the ages my kids, we just haven't gotten there yet. But they're still kind of asking. They're at the point now where they're asking questions about, different hand signals, and when we're out and around town, they see other cyclists doing hand signals and asking what that means. So it's again just a amount of time on a bike, the history, comfort, and it'll be different for everybody. So that progression will get there. You can have those conversations about what the signals mean, but until they are able to ride without one hand on their handlebars, you don't really want to be encouraging that just yet.
Sure.
So we usually call out. So a big thing too, even when I was doing my women's ride, is you call out. You don't have to take your hands on the handlebars. You can say, hey, pothole right. So we can say that and point those out to the people behind you, turning left. Or left turn, and you just keep calling that, or car up, car back. So there's other things that you can do for safety without actually using your hand gestures. So again, there's a progression with that too, is vocalizing what those would be, and then moving to a hand gesture.
So it's more of a game that way almost as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. And just understanding, because now our kids are more on their bikes, more and more, as opposed to on our cargo bike. So they're becoming more receptive of telling other people what's happening. Car back. That's important, because the people in the front might not necessarily know that, based just on your situation. So we're starting to get into that now, and my middle one just turned 5 last week, and my oldest is going to be 7 next month. So they're starting to have that awareness, but again, I think that just comes with age, and it comes with experience on a bike.
And on that sort of broader question around sort of like which skills, I think it's actually really important to watch your kids and where their skill gaps are, and then coach them through it. Mm-hmm. And giving them that sort of that feedback as they're learning. So the first big gap my daughter had was actually because she had training wheels. She was very unconfident, like with me sort of letting go when she didn't have training wheels on. Mm-hmm. And it's just getting her, it was mostly a confidence thing. And we actually had to go put her back on a Strider bike to learn the balance and get confident with it, and then move her back to pedals. But we talked her through that. It was like, you've mastered turning. You're doing good on these things. Like, you're doing these really good right now. You just need to like learn to be confident, and we just need practice, right? So she has a really good sort of mental understanding of where she's doing well, and sort of and giving her that encouragement, and letting her really realize that like she's learning a new skill, right? Again, about sort of empowerment, and then being really specific around, this is the next skill that we have to learn. And after that, it was braking. So she mastered everything else. She got the balance down, and then it was just a matter of just learning the braking system. And we focused on that next. And it was like, and I'd keep watching her, and I'd keep giving her feedback on it. And it's just kind of incrementally like focusing on individual skills and then giving her feedback on it.
Block. That's great.
Mm-hmm. But obviously that's going to be different for every kid, right? Every kid's going to have things that they master right away, and other things that they struggle with, and it's just about watching which one's which.
Block. Sorry, there's so many great comments in this section. I'm overwhelmed. Block. For folks who are watching right now, there are really great resources that folks are posting. Some folks are posting their favorite routes that they like to take their kids on. And yeah, I encourage you to sift through those. Jenny was kind enough to share her favorite route, which is at UVic. Julian, do you have any favorite routes that you like to take your kids on?
Right now it is on the Goose, in the areas that we've practiced and we've really rehearsed with. And part of the reason I just like it is just because like the people around us love it. People love seeing kids on bikes. So like just like people literally stop and they'll just like look at my kids and then just watch them go by and just like smiling from ear to ear. Just like seeing that is just like, it's just a great way to like spend your day, right? And it's a great way to like
cheer you up though.
It does. It's just so uplifting, right? So I love. Yeah, I know. And they're shameless about it too, right? Like if like they were doing it to an adult, that'd be weird. But when it's kids, it's just like everyone's like, oh, it's endearing, right?
I just wave to them, and then they usually wave back, and my kids wave.
Yeah, and I love that sense of just like being part of a community, and just like even those little interactions with people. Like I just love that. So.
Oh, that's fabulous. We're getting pretty close to the end here now. Maybe we can do one or two more questions, and then I'll wrap up. And thank you folks for taking all the time. Jenny, like you've been at every single Q&A. You were helping Julian with the cargo bike draw.
Get more people out on bikes.
Fabulous. Yeah, it's been really great working with both of you. So I really appreciate it. I know that like kind of how I've really enjoyed like wrapping everything up is just asking the panelists for like one or two pieces of advice for someone just trying this out for the first time. If someone were to ask you, what would you say? Big question, but you can maybe work your way through it.
I'm trying to think of anything else that we haven't covered already. Mm-hmm. 'Cause I think we've probably covered the big ones. This topic is riding with your kids, right? So I think like once you've given them the sort of the basic skills to be able to go to a spot where you can ride together as a group. Yeah, I would say pick a specific route you want them to practice on, and a great one would just be like to and from school if you're close enough and you've got a good connection, right? And that good connection might mean you're going a bit around, right? Like you're going the long way on just like the most quiet routes, and you're going off those like crazy little connections between streets that like you don't realize they're there until you like you're scouting around and you find them. But like find that nice route to school. Try it on just a really quiet time, right? Make it really familiar to them, and then make it a habit. School's a great one because you got to go to school Monday to Friday. It's something you're regularly going to do. It's just super, super consistent. And I think that builds skills quickly, and it builds a lot of confidence quickly. So I would say find that consistent route, start slow, and then work into it and build it into a habit.
Thank you.
Yeah, I kind of think that maybe that would be mine as well. Like just find the safe routes. And if there's anything that I can just stress enough, it would be just trying to get out as much as you can to help solidify the enjoyment of bikes, you know, and it'll be different for every family, but you know, even if you can get out for a 5-minute bike ride around your block after supper, that will do amazing things for everybody's disposition. You get out for a quick little bike ride, you know, if it's around your block, depending on where you live, hopefully that can be a safe place to, you know, try out. And it kind of just builds up that time. You know, you can make it part of your, you know, evening routine, and find the safe spaces and look at Google Maps. Like Google Maps, I feel like I'm always referring to for different side roads or different trail connectors to see if you can, you know, get 2 dead end roads connected, and can I go down there, or just, you know, try one road you've never been down before and then come back, even if it's a dead end. It's like, now you know what those houses look like. So don't feel like it's a loss. You know, if, you know, your bike ride hasn't gone to plan, or just try to get out as much as you can. Try to enjoy it as much as you can, and don't get discouraged if, you know, if your kids don't like it. You know, give that time too, and yeah, just get out.
And actually, that makes me think of just sort of one more way to go about it. If it's less about teaching your kids to be comfortable on bikes and more about you as parents being comfortable on bikes, I would say plan like an afternoon or a morning on a weekend, and start to do those family trips on a bike. And that can mean different things depending on where your family's at. So they could go in a trailer. If you have a trailer, if you've got a cargo bike, put them on a cargo bike. If they're confident enough on their bikes and you've got a route, do that. But it's just so nice to be able to go with your whole family, do a picnic in the park, stop at a cafe or something, let them bum around on the playground, and then come home. Like those like little family trips by bike are just so rewarding. Like they're so nice. And when you could just kind of compare it, right? Like sometimes those destinations you want to get to, where there's the cafe in the park, it's a bit far of a walk. So it's like, okay, you're kind of like, they're kind of tired when they get there, and then by the time it's time to come home, it might be like a bit of a walk, and they're already kind of gassed. So like sometimes it kind of steals some of the enjoyment out of it. Whereas biking's like it's so quick. Like it's just amazing how quick those trips are. And then by a car, it's like you might be spending more time in a car. Nobody likes buckling kids into car seats. Nobody likes unbuckling kids from car seats. You're just messing around with parking. Like it's just like way less fun. Those family trips by bike, it's hard to beat. Like it's so good with just where kids are at when they're young, and you're max, like you just want to be outside, right? And the bike gets you outside, and it's just a great way to create this connection between cycling and having fun.
I agree. Yeah. And I think that's actually a fabulous segue because the next phase of the All Aboard program is actually going to be led group rides for your families. So
Perfect.
our cycling instructors from Capital Bike are going to be leading family group rides, and you can register if you go to capitalbike.ca/allaboard. You can find all of the different dates that we have set up in all the different locations. And yeah, it just seems to be the best part is to be able to go out and have like a ice cream with your family, but you've got there by bike, and that's the beautiful thing for sure.
And I feel like now, like, we live in such a wonderful world where there are so many different options of bikes and ways to get out on bikes with families. There's, a whole plethora of different cargo bikes. There's different trailers. There's, a whole bunch of different infant seats on bikes. So, now is the time to explore all those different options. Bishop's Family Cycles is a big cargo bike store, which has so many great choices. And Oak Bay Bikes does a loaner program, actually, where they would drop off a family cargo bike for you to test out. And then they pick it up like it's right at your door. So there's lots of good options, and they're all fairly accessible, depending on what you buy. There's, higher price tags, but everything is also in relation, to the cost of a car or insurance or whichever. So every family will have different financial constraints, but there's so many choices.
Yeah,
100%.
kind of in that vein, like I've been a part of the family cycling group and just seeing all the folks posting like their used like cargo bikes or like their bike seats and things. Like there are options out there. So yeah, shout out to the family cycling group on Facebook, Family Cycling Victoria.
It's great. I always love to try to, chime in whenever I can, or like hear what other people are saying, or see their setups even. Like it really is a wonderful resource. And so are these seminars too. So yeah. I hope we get more people out on bikes.
Me too. That's our time. Julia and Jenny, thank you so much. This has been really a great conversation. All 3 days have been great. And yeah, again, thank you folks at Quadratic Sound for having us here. And thanks for everyone who came to the live stream. This was a lot of fun, and we hope to do it again. So signing off for now. Thanks folks. Talk to you soon.
Thanks,
guys.
Christine. Thanks everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.